Good afternoon and welcome to Dirigo Food Safety live office hours. It's noon on, Wednesday, January 16th. And we've got a couple of good topics to cover today because I know we're going to have some new people watching this Facebook Live because of some conversations I've had over Facebook. I just wanted to go ahead and reintroduce myself. I'm Dr. Michelle Fanninsteel. The doctor in front of my name is I'm a veterinarian. You can, I guess, over my shoulder over here, you can see a picture of the University of Georgia College of Veterinary Medicine back over there. Okay, I'm a Georgia grad for vet school, so go dogs, sick 'em. And while I was at Georgia, I concentrated very heavily on public health and regulatory veterinary medicine. And I did a whole lot of work with foreign animal diseases. I spent 6 weeks of my senior year at the Plum Island Foreign Animal Disease Research Center out in the middle of the Long Island Sound, kind of halfway between Connecticut and New York. I got to take a boat to work every day for 6 weeks. It was amazing. But there I learned a whole lot of things about foreign animal diseases, and I bring all of that knowledge because the other part of me is after I was in vet school, I went into the Army. I am a veterinarian, and the work I did in the Army was all about food safety. So basically I have an entire business that brings my captain's job into small businesses. Most people with my background go to work for the USDA or the FDA, feeling very good about the choice to open my own shop because my friends at the USDA and the FDA are like working without paychecks, and it's ridiculous. So that's by way of background. And so I bring deep knowledge of regulatory veterinary medicine, infectious disease, specifically foreign animal diseases, to smallholder food businesses. And so we're going to talk today about a couple of different topics concerning all of that stuff. So the first thing that I want to talk about, because this is what everybody is talking about, is the government shutdown. So we're on like day 25 or 26 of the government shutdown, and I was out in the field last week working in USDA facilities. I was in USDA facilities for 4.5 out of 5 days. I saw one government food inspector once for half an hour. So yes, FSIS is up and functioning. Are they actually at work? They have so many things that they are doing. It's not clear to me, boots on the ground perspective, what they are actually doing. Is our food supply safe? Yes, but our food supply is safe and has always been safe, not because of the actions of the government, okay? There are 3 parts to what keeps our food supply safe, okay? Our food supply is safe because the businesses that actually make the food keep the food supply safe, because my clients and almost all people, though reading some things about pet food, I'm a little question, but almost all businesses are really truly committed to providing safe food, because you don't stay in business for very long if you don't provide safe food. So that's one leg of a 3-legged stool. Okay, the second one is the consumers. Consumers are also responsible for safe food because they're the ultimate people who eat the food. And I'm talking about cooking your food. Okay, so ready to eat foods are ready to eat foods, but not ready to eat foods are not, and we need to cook our foods appropriately. So that's the second leg of the 3-legged stool. And then the third leg is the government. Okay, the government provides regulatory inspection, but I am here to tell you, you cannot inspect safety and quality into a process. If the government is there or if the government is not there, it does not make the food safe or less safe. It allows the public to have eyes on the process. That's what our USDA inspectors do, is that it allows government oversight of the vital function of producing food. Government inspection doesn't make food safe. QA inspection doesn't make food safe. You can't inspect safety into a process. You have to manufacture safety into a process. And this is what we're all about here. People talk to me about third-party audits. I love talking third-party audits, and we'll talk about it at the end of this at the end of the Facebook Live, but the truth of the matter is that your third-party audit isn't what makes your food safe or quality or whatever. It's the actions you take to pass that audit. It's the things that you do to make your government regulator see that you are complying with regulations. That's what makes food safe. It's not the inspection, it's the actions, okay? So in this government shutdown, everybody's still expected to make safe food, okay? And if you are not making safe food, it will eventually come back and bite you in the butt. And I think we all recognize that, okay? From an FDA perspective, they are saying they are restarting high risk. My suspicion is that they want to be out there and show that they are doing stuff. So my suspicion is that some poor soul is going to get a swabathon, you know, and we're going to start to do swabathons with the FDA with high-risk foods. So I'm talking to my fish producers, ready-to-eat fish producers. It's not lobster season here in Maine. It's freezing cold out. And we're not shrimping this year. So not them, but if you're smoking fish, or doing other ready-to-eat fish products, fish chowders, fish salads, surimi products, and things like that. If you are producing ready-to-eat fish, I would expect for the FDA to show up do what we call a swabathon, okay, which is where they take between 100 and 300 swabs in your facility. And I don't care if you have a 500 square foot facility or a 500,000 square foot facility, they will take between 100 and 300 swabs. So this, of course, brings up the over-inspection of our small facilities, but that's the world that we live in, and we're not gonna change that today. So I would, and the reason I say that is because the FDA is probably looking for high-profile things to do to show that they are being effective, okay? Because in a government shutdown, government workers have to prove to a GOP administration that they are useful. This is a party that thinks government is the problem. These are their words, government is the problem. And so if you are a government worker, you have to very publicly show that you are not the problem, that you are doing your job, that you are, you know, creating a safe food supply. And so they're going to be looking to do high profile things, okay? So if you are doing importing, make sure your foreign supplier verification stuff is completely squared away. Everybody who you buy from must have some manner of a preventive controls plan or have filed that they don't need to have a preventive controls plan, and they are controlling for food safety hazards. It's very easy for the FDA to stop stuff at the port because that's a choke point, right? So if you are importing FDA products, you know, make sure that your foreign supplier verification program is completely squared away, because that is a very, very easy choke point for both Customs and Border Patrol, border security people, and for the FDA at the ports. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. So that's the shutdown. If you have questions about the shutdown, I can always go look things up. But I trust our food supply because I trust our food. I trust the food that I eat because I know the people who manufacture my food because they're my clients. All right. So be the people who create the food that you yourselves want to eat, and we won't have a problem in the government shutdown any more than we already do. Okay. So that's the next thing. Or the first thing. All right, the next thing that I want to talk about is I want to talk about garbage feeding pigs. Okay, I am on a Facebook group, a very large Facebook group called Pastured Pigs for Meat and Profit. And we had a large discussion this weekend around garbage feeding pigs. And because I believe in public health, because I believe that a lack of knowledge shouldn't be a reason that people get sick, I do these Facebook Lives and I bring this information out into the community because it's important. So let's have a conversation about garbage feeding pigs. All right, so there are two facets in my head of this conversation. So the first facet is garbage in, garbage out. All right. If you want to feed table scraps to your pigs, knock yourself out. It is very difficult to produce high quality pork on table scraps. Yes, I know pigs are omnivorous. I know that we have raised pigs for millennia as human beings on table scraps. Pigs have also been the source of some of the worst foreign animal disease outbreaks we've ever had. Okay. All right, and there are diseases and things that we've eradicated in the United States because we stopped the habit of feeding pigs table scraps. Yes, pigs eat garbage. That doesn't mean we should feed them garbage. With my clients, we raise very expensive heritage hogs, you know, because they taste good and they give us fat marbling and we can cure them and we make the best pork chops ever and that sort of thing. And if you are feeding table scraps, it's bad from a nutrition profile because you don't know what's going into your pigs. Okay, so feeding whatever comes off your table from your family to your own personal pig that you know you're never going to sell, is it legal if you have meat scraps in there? Yeah, it's legal. Is it a surpassingly bad idea? Yes, it is a surpassingly bad idea, because unless you have a completely closed loop system, you never buy any other meat from any other farmers that you eat on your facility. You never eat chicken. Okay, because I know you're keeping your chickens downwind and downwater from your pigs because your chickens are dirtier than your pigs. But you better never eat chicken, because if your chicken has avian influenza, all right, which is unlikely, but the chance is not zero with pastured poultry that they are incubating an avian influenza. You eat that, you don't cook it to kill the avian influenza, and you feed it to your pigs can actually eat that and resort that avian influenza and create a swine flu that is zoonotic to people, okay? That's how the swine flu came out of South Asia. I guess it was Hong Kong, while I was in vet school. Like, this happens. This is not, there is a non-zero chance of this stuff happening. I'm not just being an alarmist. I'm telling you things that have happened in the world, and just because we are in America, we are not in any way, shape, or form immune from reintroduction of foreign animal diseases. Swine flu isn't even a foreign animal disease, okay? It's a known entity here. That's why we have to be so careful, okay? And we, as pastured pig producers, are on the front lines. This stuff, it's never gonna happen in the confinement hog operations. Dude, I don't know if y'all have ever been to a confinement hog operations, but my single worst day of vet school was in a confinement hog operation. It was horrifying. But they sure don't get diseases in. But that's not how we've chosen to raise our pigs, because we believe things about pigs. We believe things about how they should be raised and how the meat should taste, okay? But with that comes the responsibility to understand the diseases we are not mitigating by picking our pigs up and moving them inside. And those are diseases that are zoonotic to people and make us sick. And those are foreign animal diseases of devastating economic consequence. You think China not buying soybeans from us is a devastating economic consequence? What if they didn't buy pork from us because there was some big scandal about garbage feeding pigs? Yes, I know they do it in China, but that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what they do, it matters what we do. And that's what matters for our trade and tariff negotiations, is that we have laws in place saying that pigs that go into the commercial food stream never get fed garbage, okay? So that's supremely important from a foreign animal disease perspective. We are in the middle of an outbreak of African swine fever in China, okay? African swine fever has been eradicated in the United States. It does not take a whole lot of smuggled meat coming in from China through back channels to reintroduce African swine fever into the United States. And there are veterinarians who are working on this problem. And they're not working on it right now because the government shut down, but that's what they're working on, okay? Classical swine fever is the same way. There are only two diseases in the entire world that we've ever eradicated: smallpox and a disease called rinderpest. Okay, rinderpest is the plague of cattle in the Old Testament. We eradicated rinderpest within the past 10 years. All right, so that's never going to come. It's eradicated. That's never going to come back. Every other disease is still on the table. And with the internationalization of our food production and our food supply, and the internationalization and how people walk across borders and how people fly across borders and how we transfer products across borders, these diseases can come back. We are really worried about this stuff. And that's not even considering the diseases we haven't even eradicated. I mean, for heaven's sakes, if you are feeding raw milk to your pigs because you run cattle and you run pigs, I surely hope you have a brucellosis-free herd and you're getting tested by your state for brucellosis, because we can communicate brucellosis to our swine. Okay, and then you interact with that swine, you can get brucellosis. It's called undulating fever, and it's really terrible. It's really, really terrible. Okay, it makes people super, super, super sick, and farmers get it fairly frequently. Okay, so here's how, if you do decide to garbage feed your pigs, all right, if you decide to garbage feed your pigs, first of all, there is a legal definition of this, and that is table scraps or restaurant waste, whatever, with meat in it. Veggies are not a problem. I would say anything with an animal-based protein goes into the garbage definition, okay? Veggies are fine. Knock yourself out. Feed your pigs all the veggies you want. If it's in a meat sauce or a dairy sauce or whatever, then that's the garbage feeding problem, okay? Because of how disease transmission works. If you decide to do that, okay, if you get restaurant scraps in to feed your pigs, you must have a garbage cooker. Okay, that garbage cooker is inspected and licensed by the state. It's usually a yearly inspection signed off by the state. Okay, essentially what that garbage cooker does is boil all of that stuff for an hour. That's what a garbage cooker does, okay? If you boil table scraps for an hour and then slap your pigs with it, you're not gonna communicate disease, and you're fine, okay? From a husbandry perspective, however, I really don't recommend that, because one, garbage in, garbage out, and two, if you don't do that well, all right, you don't know what all else is going in the feed, and you're not gonna have your feed ration very well controlled. So how hard is your back fat gonna be? How soft is your belly fat gonna be? What sort of muscle development are you gonna have, okay? So is it legally possible to do it? Absolutely, 100%. It is legally possible to garbage feed your pigs, okay? If it's such a brilliant idea, I'm confused as to why when I go on Craigslist to buy local pork, nobody says garbage fed pork, okay? I really want you guys to think about it. Do I know feed is expensive? Hell yes, I know feed is expensive. All right, are there good ways to close the loop on our systems, on our farms? Absolutely, by feeding vegetables. There are some things that are just not worth the risk. Garbage feeding pigs is it. If you want to garbage feed your pigs, knock yourself out. Get an inspected, licensed garbage cooker and do the work. Show up to the work of actually garbage feeding your pigs, okay? And see what the quality difference is between your pork and the pork of somebody who doesn't garbage feed the pigs. All right, and the difference isn't the actual garbage. It's the maintenance of the nutrients in the pig itself. Okay, maintaining nutrients and maintaining a consistent product. That's how you go about creating and scaling a pork business. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. If you don't want to scale your business, don't worry about it. Okay, if you're only feeding yourself, don't worry about it, and understand the risks that you're putting on your family. That's all I can ask you to do. You're going to do what you want to do. This is, it's a free country. It's your choice. You're going to do what you want to do. There are risks associated with what you want to do, okay? So there are risks. I want to point this out too. There are risks associated with what you want to do. There are also hazards associated with what you want to do. So risk is big picture, okay? There is a risk of transmission of infectious disease. Those are risks. Hazards are the individual infectious diseases themselves. African swine fever is a hazard of garbage feeding pigs because it goes from pig to pig. It does not infect people, okay? Trichinella is a hazard, and it is a hazard to people. It is a zoonotic disease. If you eat pork that has trichinellosis, that has a trichinella infection, you will get trichinellosis, okay? Trichinellosis requires, in some cases, lifelong chemotherapy to keep it at bay, okay? I know we associate chemotherapy with cancer, but chemotherapy is also associated with parasitic infections. There are different kinds of parasites that we get that you have to basically take ivermectin for the rest of your life to keep at bay, okay? The trichinella is a hazard. Toxoplasmosis, another hazard of garbage feeding. Increased incidences of salmonella, hazard of garbage feeding. Staph aureus toxicity, because restaurants are not known for keeping their garbage within time temp regulations, and all of that food can develop Staph aureus toxicity, and Staph aureus toxicity can make your pig sick. Okay, they get Staph aureus toxicity just like we do. Okay, those are hazards. Those are the individual things that can go wrong. Hazards are independent of the amount of food produced. Okay, so risks, big picture: infectious disease is a risk. Chemical hazards are a risk. Physical hazards are a risk. The individual things are the actual hazards associated. Physical hazards like bolts in the food, chemical hazards, an allergen is a chemical hazard, and then microbial hazards, which is mostly what we are talking about. Okay, so that is the conversation about garbage feeding pigs. I am completely happy to answer questions about it, but I want to clear that stuff up. The other point that I want to make is I know our government is shut down right now, but I know that my friends in FSIS and in APHIS, the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service, read the same Facebook pages, okay? And if we want to convince FSIS that we know what the hell we're talking about in non-conventional animal raising, then we have to have these conversations. We have to show them that we are willing to show up to the conversation about infectious disease, and we don't believe that we are immune from infectious diseases because we pasture our pigs, because science says that's absolutely and 110% not the case. I don't care what you say about your pig's immune system. That is just frankly not the case. We fight infectious disease by locking pigs in confinement feeding operations. We have made a different choice. We like our different choice. We believe in our different choice. We still have to show up to the conversation about infectious disease. Okay, the conversation about infectious disease is real. The conversation about infectious disease drives our general agreement in tariff and trade, the GATT agreements, sanitary and phytosanitary agreements. Like there are people whose whole job is to negotiate trading partnerships, and a lot of it comes down to infectious disease. Just ask me about Korea and mad cow disease, okay? So this is real. So show up to the conversation, ask questions about infectious disease when you don't understand. Understand that there is science out there around why we do what we do around infectious disease, like vaccination. Understand there are limits to what an immune system can do, and somehow magically exposing a pig to fresh air and sunshine does not give it immunity to African swine fever. Reducing stocking densities and spreading our pigs out reduces the risk of African swine fever, but I promise you get African swine fever on your farm, that whole herd is going down, okay, because because of the hazard. Yes, the risk is lower, but the hazard is exactly the same. Okay, so speaking of hazards, I want to talk about one particular hazard, and I want to give my viewers an opportunity. I have found a manufacturer of UV lights who is looking for partners to test products to do 5-log reduction in salmonella on ready-to-eat foods. Okay, so for those of you who make ready-to-eat foods, you must have a minimum of 5 logs of reduction of salmonella in your ready-to-eat food. Okay, and in our meat and poultry processes, you need to have those reductions in your ready-to-eat food, especially like they're looking very hard at dried salamis and that dried whole mussels. And there is an opportunity to work with somebody to develop a process using UV radiation. We're just in the beta testing portions of this. We're just looking to talk to people to see if this would work. So if you know somebody, or if you are somebody who would be interested in producing a ready-to-eat food, okay, and you know you need to get 5 logs of reduction and you don't quite know how you're going to get there, or getting the 5 logs of reduction doesn't give you the quality attributes, the organoleptic attributes of your food that you want, this might be a really good opportunity. So I'm thinking of like the jerky makers out there. We can cover the jerky in UV radiation and then potentially not have to cook it as high and use other things to control for salmonella or Shiga toxin E. coli by using UV radiation. So I have that opportunity. I would love to talk to anybody out there who's interested in taking that. Okay, so that is salmonella, and I'm happy to take any questions. It's the bottom of the hour, and I have a call about changing the world in 6 minutes. So I'm totally happy to take any questions if people have them. I'm going to post this discussion, of course, on the Facebook page. Feel free to add to the discussion as you would like. The other thing that I want to add is that I've been having some interesting discussions about cooperative interstate shipments. We just got cooperative interstate shipments here in Maine, and it's not as easy as you think, and it actually looks like if you do cooperative interstate shipments, you might get double inspected. So I'm a little confused. It might be appropriate for people who are already Maine state inspected and not opening up a business, because it still looks easier to open a business if you are if you just go straight USDA. So we are working on that. I should have other things to talk about in the next 2 weeks when I do this again. In 2 weeks, I am going to be in Washington, D.C. with the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition. I will be doing Facebook Live over lunchtime. It may be from my phone, and it will be from the conference. And so if you have questions, I'm going to be meeting with lawmakers and doing a lot of policy work. This is kind of like my semi-annual policy work on how we get things done and get things changed. This stuff really works. It's through this process that we got the change that if you are PQA plus certified, your pig herd is considered to be trichinella free. All right. I got that change in, and it's because of the people at the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition and I worked together to get that change in. Okay, so the process works. I don't know how it works with the government shutdown, but I'll be sure to tell you in 2 weeks. All right, so if there are no other questions, I will let you go. Everybody have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Please post questions if you have them. Have a great day. Thanks, guys.